We're going to go back to this jubilant scene here. Candy Crowley has a guest.
Hi, Bernie. Yeah, Mark McKinnon. So we call you what? Media guru, right?
Media director. So.
Okay. Mark, first of all, let me just talk about personally what you went through tonight. I mean, we were up, we were down. What was the mood?
It was like 5 life and death experiences. I mean, I really felt like I've been to hell and back on a number of occasions tonight. You know, when Florida went south, I know the governor maintained his optimism, but I got to tell you, a lot of us on the staff, just Florida was key. We knew that from the very beginning. And when Florida went south, we all got involved in some very fuzzy math about how to try and put it together. But we knew we knew we'd have to run the boards literally to make it happen without Florida. So it was really devastating when Florida went south. I mean, it was just I mean, the whole campaign went dark, and we really thought it was going to be tough to pull off. And so when the projection came back, they were pulling it back into the undecided column. You know, we all got revived, and then you just can't imagine what it was like in the headquarters, literally watching the margins. You know, we were at 50 to 48%, but literally we're watching 100,000 votes shrink to about a 20,000 vote margin, which I guess is what we won with.
What do you think did it for him? I mean, if you had to like pin it down to one thing besides those marvelous ads you put out, what's the one thing that did this for him?
I think it was that the governor got a very fundamental focused message about trusting people versus Al Gore trusting big government. I think that in the end, that message got through, and people looked at Governor Bush and they saw a president. And I think I think the debates were critical. I think the debates, when you look at the tracking and the research, the debates are when the whole thing turned around.
Has anybody in this campaign been looking ahead over the last 48, 62 hours, however long, about, okay, what next?
If they have, it wasn't me. I have no idea. I'm going to go to bed tonight and have a stiff drink here as quickly as I can get off your set.
Well, before you go do that, and they're cheering for you to go have a drink, Mark, so that's really nice. You're I don't know, do we call you a former Democrat now?
I'm a Bush man is what I am. I'm a Bush man.
And what was it that got you from the other side over to Governor Bush?
Well, he was a Republican that was proactive. He was for things instead of against things. You know, he had a bipartisan message. And listen, I was just one of 800,000 Democrats in Texas that crossed the bridge to support him. And then, you know, we saw tonight that a whole lot of other Americans came across the bridge as well.
Darkest time of the campaign?
September. I call it Black September. It was the month of rats, moles, and bad polls. It was a very difficult time. Of course, New Hampshire was tough. We lost South Carolina, but the governor never wavered. He felt from the very beginning it was a long-distance run. He set the pace, and we just followed him throughout. He never, in the darkest times of the campaign, he never wavered. He always felt we were going to pull it out.
Did you ever waver?
Tonight. Oh, I wavered 100 times. Are you kidding me?
Mark McKinnon, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Judy, Bernie?
All right, Candy Crowley, I'm sure that Mark McKinnon was speaking for many people in the crowd when he said what his plans are in the next few minutes after we hear from the Texas governor, and we know he wants to talk. We want to show you who've been watching. Of course, CNN has called the winner, George W. Bush, that he will be the 43rd president of the United States. This is what the popular vote, the raw vote total looks like, with 90% of the precincts reporting. It is still a very close election. 49% George W. Bush, 44,777,000 to Al Gore's 44,432,000. We are talking, what, 45?
You're talking about
350,000 out of 88, 89 million.
You're talking now about a race.
Small percentage.
You're talking about a popular vote margin now that is closer than Nixon and Humphreys. Nixon won by about 500,000 votes, slightly larger than Kennedy's 110,000 vote margin against Richard Nixon. And I now would like to point out depending on where this 10% is coming from, that it is not inconceivable that Al Gore will have more popular votes than George Bush.
Which is the opposite of what
everybody
were thinking going into this.
Everybody was assuming everybody was assuming Bush would win the popular vote,
Right.
but Gore might win the electoral
win
vote.
the electoral vote.
I will say, some of us pointed out it is possible that it would break the other way. I'm not predicting it will. I'm only saying that as you look at Bush's margin and the popular vote steadily shrinking, and remember, you know, the Gore people were saying we're going to play by the rules, whatever the electoral vote says, you may be faced here with a man with 271 electoral votes, President of the United States, getting really no more and maybe a few votes less than the man he defeated.
Well, to help make your case, there are, we are told, approximately 11 million votes out yet to be counted. We do not believe that they will make any difference to the outcome, but we do have 11 million more votes to count. And
The United States has a new president. He's the Texas Governor, George Walker Bush, who tonight defeated Vice President Al Gore. CNN's White House correspondent John King is in Nashville.
Bernie, CNN is told by two senior Gore campaign officials that the vice president placed a phone call to the Texas governor. The vice president, now in his motorcade, due here in downtown Nashville in just a few minutes to deliver remarks to the supporters left gathered here. We're told he called Governor Bush and congratulated him on winning the election, and in brief remarks here tonight to his supporters and, of course, to the American people, will wish the governor well. We're told the statement will be very brief and that the vice president plans to meet with his senior campaign staff tomorrow. He did wish the small group of aides with him at the Nashville hotel when the results became clear. He did wish them very well, we're told, and thank them for their help in this election. Obviously a very emotional moment. Many of the most junior members of the staff flowing here now into a pouring rain in Nashville to hear the Vice President, Tipper Gore, and the Liebermans come to address what they had hoped would be a victory rally. This always the toughest, not only for the candidates, but also for the junior staffers who have never been through something like this and believe all along they are going to win. But again, we are told the Vice President will concede the election in his brief remarks here tonight. His political future up in the air. This is a man who served 8 years in the House, 8 in the Senate, 8 as Vice President, now narrowly losing what he had been his lifelong dream, winning the presidency of the United States. Bernie?
And Joe Lieberman, of course, will retain his seat in the United States Senate. Where is Senator Lieberman?
Senator Lieberman was here in Nashville, and he will come here with the Vice President tonight. He and Hadassah Lieberman, his wife, were at a hotel in downtown Nashville with the Gores, watching the results come in. They were told a short time ago to gather up their group and come on over here.
John, are you hearing any expressions of, we came so close?
Well, certainly, even in the last 48 hours, they were saying that if they lost, that they would come very close. Little margin, no margin for error in their strategy in the final days. Now that, of course, a tribute to Governor Bush and the way he prosecuted this campaign. Already, as we've discussed earlier, some finger pointing at Ralph Nader for drawing away liberal votes from the vice president. And the greatest frustration, of course, throughout the Gore campaign, how should the vice president try to strike the balance between trying to get some credit for the successes of the Clinton administration, but to escape the personal failings and the personal controversies of the president. So, of course, they feel in this campaign that they came very close. Look at the electoral count. But the vice president lost here at home at Tennessee. His aides saying he will have to take responsibility for that, although this state has trended Republican very quickly in the past 6 to 8 years. Bill Clinton's home state of Arkansas gone Republican as well. And again, one of the key differences, the coalition Bill Clinton and Al Gore formed in 1992 and then again in 1996, included a few of those southern states that the Republicans had been successful at in the prior presidential elections, especially in the Reagan years. And we've just been told that the vice president's motorcade has arrived, so we expect to see him in just a few minutes.
Hey, John, it's Jeff Greenfield. Has anyone in the Gore campaign come to grips with the possibility that as we look at the popular vote, that Al Gore might be the one who wins the popular vote but loses the electoral vote?
Well, remember, all week long the speculation has been just the opposite,
right,
that George W. Bush might win. And the people in the Gore campaign consistently said that they believed they would win the popular vote and the presidency because they believed the results as we went west, that he would run up a pretty good margin in California. They believed, and he did carry Washington State. So did they assume? They have assumed all along the possibility that he would win the popular vote. But as they assumed that, they assumed he would win the presidency if he did so. Never in our discussions this week did anybody in the Gore campaign say, you know, we're a little worried we might win the popular vote and not the Electoral College. They thought they would go hand in hand, especially because they thought he would win California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York. It appears he will win all those states. They were hoping for Florida, that's the other big one. So they thought that if they won the Electoral College, they would do so by winning big enough in those big states, even though they would win fewer states. They knew that all along. They thought they'd win big enough to win both.
Hearing any expressions of, we came so close?
Well, certainly, even in the last 48 hours, they were saying that if they lost, that they would come very close. Little margin, no margin for error in their strategy in the final days. Now that, of course, a tribute to Governor Bush and the way he prosecuted this campaign. Already, as we've discussed earlier, some finger pointing at Ralph Nader for drawing away liberal votes from the vice president. And the greatest frustration, of course, throughout the Gore campaign, how should the vice president try to strike the balance between trying to get some credit for the successes of the Clinton administration, but to escape the personal failings and the personal controversies of the president. So, of course, they feel in this campaign that they came very close. Look at the electoral count. But the vice president lost here at home at Tennessee. His aides saying he will have to take responsibility for that, although this state has trended Republican very quickly in the past 6 to 8 years. Bill Clinton's home state of Arkansas gone Republican as well. And again, one of the key differences, the coalition Bill Clinton and Al Gore formed in 1992 and then again in 1996, included a few of those southern states that the Republicans had been successful at in the prior presidential elections, especially in the Reagan years. And we've just been told that the vice president's motorcade has arrived, so we expect to see him in just a few minutes.
Hey, John, it's Jeff Greenfield. Has anyone in the Gore campaign come to grips with the possibility that as we look at the popular vote, that Al Gore might be the one who wins the popular vote but loses the electoral vote?
Well, remember, all week long the speculation has been just the opposite,
right,
that George W. Bush might win. And the people in the Gore campaign consistently said that they believed they would win the popular vote and the presidency because they believed the results as we went west, that he would run up a pretty good margin in California. They believed, and he did carry Washington State. So did they assume? They have assumed all along the possibility that he would win the popular vote. But as they assumed that, they assumed he would win the presidency if he did so. Never in our discussions this week did anybody in the Gore campaign say, you know, we're a little worried we might win the popular vote and not the Electoral College. They thought they would go hand in hand, especially because they thought he would win California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York. It appears he will win all those states. They were hoping for Florida, that's the other big one. So they thought that if they won the Electoral College, they would do so by winning big enough in those big states, even though they would win fewer states. They knew that all along. They thought they'd win big enough to win both.
They were also telling some people, you know, they're ready for a popular vote loss because, by God, this is what the Founding Fathers had in mind. There's got to be some exquisite irony. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the numbers look like it could happen the other way.
It could happen the other way, and if that happens, and there will be anyway, the what-ifs. What is the 1 or 2 states we could have done? And again, if you look at this very close electoral map, if they had turned Tennessee's 11 electoral votes around, West Virginia elected a Democratic governor tonight, unseating a Republican, yet Al Gore lost a state that had voted Democratic in 8 of the last 10 presidential elections. States like Iowa came his way, or it appears it will come his way, but very close at the end. So there will be a lot of questioning as to why Al Gore could not run stronger in traditionally Democratic states and why a man from Tennessee could not do at least a little bit better in the southern and border states.
All right, John King there in Nashville. You said the